I want to believe that art has a unique and essential purpose in our lives because it has always been important to me. Still, I have doubts about its practical utility, which I explored in the two pieces below. The first piece represents Plato's school of thought regarding art, as well as skepticism towards art in general. I started out by carving out the word copy in a linoleum block, inking it up, and printing it in rows up and down the piece. I chose the medium of linoleum print because it's a good metaphor for Plato's principal criticism of art, that it is nothing more than mimesis. He believed that art was essentially a copy of a copy. Reality imperfectly mimicked his world of ideal forms, while art imperfectly mimicked reality. In the same sense, a linoleum print is capable of making copies that are deceptively similar, but it loses a little bit of detail and sharpness with each repetition. The quote, "They mistook art for reality," is paraphrased from the reading The Art World by Arthur Danto. This, to me, represents the danger of placing too much faith in art. Clearly, I believe that there is value in art. Otherwise, I wouldn't be choosing to build my life around it. However, I recognize that art has its limits. It may help us to better understand our lives, but it will never be a substitute for life itself. I wanted this piece to serve as a warning against attempting to live through art, or using art to escape one's problems. The second piece is a response to the first, embodying Aristotle's aesthetic philosophy. The most prominent text is a snide quote by Aristotle. "Plato is dear to me, but dearer still is truth." As you know, Aristotle was a student of Plato, so he was influenced by many of his ideas, but he ultimately came to reject some of them. His irreverence reveals their irreconcilable differences. He was basically saying, "I love you to death, Plato, but you're full of it." Aristotle rejected Plato's theory of a world of ideal forms. He believed that art had value because it could improve upon reality. The quote in red is paraphrased from another idea in Dante's The Art World. Hamlet and Socrates compared art to a mirror held up to nature. Mirrors show us our own reflections, something that we could not otherwise perceive. In the same sense, art has the potential to reveal us to ourselves, hence the mosaic mirror pieces. I also included another quote by Aristotle, "Change in all things is sweet." This does not apply directly to his views on art, but I think it epitomizes the difference between Plato and Aristotle. Plato was almost excessively concerned with moderation and preserving the status quo. As we can see in the Republic, he believed that was necessary for an elite group of sophists to obtain power in society and protect the masses from themselves. He had an instinctive distaste for art because it was capable of inciting passion in the masses. Passion leads to revolution, and revolution was the last thing that Plato wanted in his perfectly stable republic. Aristotle, on the other hand, was more open to the changes that the future might bring, and therefore more optimistic about the power of art. I tend to sympathize more with Aristotle. I find it hard to believe that images that inspire such powerful emotions could be completely meaningless. Plato seemed to be more concerned with stability than truth. I am somewhat pleased with what I've accomplished so far, but I would like to add more to it. I didn't have the time to build the layers sufficiently. Neither piece is really palimpsestic. I also realize that many of the words are not as legible as I would like them to be. I know that legibility is certainly not a requirement for this assignment, but I would like people to understand the message I'm trying to get across. I relied mostly on ink in both pieces, so it comes across as too flat. I would like to place emphasis on certain words by adding texture to them and raising them above the cardboard. I would also try to show more continuity between the two pieces, so they acted as a unified whole rather than two separate endeavors. I could have done this by using some of the same colors and materials in both. I think that the most powerful quote in my diptych is, "They mistook art for reality." It raises questions about the purpose of art and the intention of artists. Classical aesthetic philosophers evaluated art based on the assumption that it imitated reality. If it were nothing but an imitation, and an imperfect one at that, then surely Plato was right and art is meaningless. But if it can improve upon reality by embellishing certain aspects or juxtaposing elements that could not otherwise coexist, then perhaps Aristotle was right, and art completes what nature cannot bring to finish.